Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really fundamental truth of financial statement analysis. We're going to look closely at ratio analysis, but more importantly, we are going to shatter this illusion that just calculating a financial ratio is the final step in your analysis. It's a super common trap to think the math is the answer. But, a number without context is kind of like knowing a sports team scored 10 points without actually knowing if they were playing basketball or soccer, right? The math is literally just the beginning of the story.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the basics of ratio analysis, the 3 essential benchmarks, different users and different goals, locating weaknesses in planning, a tale of 2 contexts, and finally, common candidate mistakes. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, the basics of ratio analysis, or as I like to call it, the illusion of the lonely number. Okay, picture this. You've just spent a bunch of time crunching the numbers from a company's balance sheet and income statement. You've calculated their accounts receivable turnover, which, just as a quick reminder, measures the efficiency of their accounts receivable collection. And boom, the result sitting there on your calculator is 15.3 times. You double-check your math, it's totally correct. The company turned over its accounts receivable balance 15.3 times during the current year. But here is the absolute million-dollar question. Is this actually a good number? Without any outside context, is 15.3 times a great result, or is it a giant red flag? Does it mean the company is super efficient, or are they seriously struggling to collect cash? The reality is, standing completely on its own, this number tells you absolutely nothing about the firm's actual financial health. And that brings us directly to the formal definition. Ratio analysis is an incredibly powerful tool for evaluating a firm's financial performance, its efficiency, and spotting underlying weaknesses. But, and this is a massive but, as our sources explicitly state, ratios are not useful unless they can be compared against a standard or benchmark. A ratio is basically just a measurement. It's like trying to figure out if a piece of wood is long enough without having the blueprint. You simply don't know if a financial ratio is healthy without that benchmark. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the 3 essential benchmarks. This is all about giving our numbers that much-needed context. So where do we actually find this blueprint? Well, our source material outlines the big 3 common benchmarks you absolutely must apply. First up, the industry norm. You need to see how your firm stacks up against peers operating in the exact same space. Though, quick side note, developing ratios for comparison is way more useful for firms operating within a specific industry than for massive conglomerates that span across a bunch of different industries. Second, the aggregate economy. You've got to account for macro trends. Like, is a dip in performance just a company issue, or is the entire economy facing a downturn? And third, the firm's past performance. This is totally vital for tracking internal growth or decline over time. Honestly, only by checking all 3 can you get the true picture. All right, Section 3, different users, different goals. Who is looking? Because context isn't just about the numbers we compare against, it's also about the human element. Look at it this way. Depending on who is actually asking the question, the standard changes entirely. Management uses ratio analysis internally to figure out the financial health of the firm, spot weaknesses, and formulate plans. Investors, on the other hand, they're looking at these exact same ratios to judge earnings quality. They want to know if the company has a predictably stable pattern of earnings that screams long-term health and, future dividend payouts. Meanwhile, creditors are super focused on resource efficiency. Their main goal is just assessing if the firm can actually repay its debts and fix charges. So it's one ratio, but viewed through 3 completely different lenses. Let's move on to Section 4, locating weaknesses and planning. We're going beyond the surface here. Let's look at how management specifically uses these contextualized ratios as a diagnostic tool. Because ratio analysis isn't just a static report card. It's a roadmap for future action. Even if a firm is operating effectively as a whole, management can use benchmarked ratios to dig deep and locate very specific hidden weaknesses. For example, maybe overall profitability is looking great, but inventory turnover has suddenly plummeted. Once they identify that specific weak area, management can formulate targeted improvement plans. And here's the absolute best part about ratio analysis. It creates a built-in feedback loop. Progress toward achieving those plans can be continuously tracked simply by analyzing how those specific ratios change over time. Okay, Section 5, a tale of 2 contexts. Let's do a quick reality check and see this comparative theory in action. Let's bring back our accounts receivable turnover of 15.3 times. Viewed purely in a vacuum, hey, maybe it looks fantastic. The company is collecting its receivables over 15 times a year. Awesome. But then we apply our benchmark and look at the industry average, which turns out to be
25 times. Yikes. Suddenly, that 15.3 doesn't look so hot, does it? When held up against a highly efficient industry standard, it reveals that our firm is actually lagging significantly behind its competitors. They are collecting cash way slower than everyone else in their market. This right here is exactly why context is literally everything.
But hold on, let's flip the script. Looking at a firm's past performance adds another, entirely different layer of context. If we look at the trend over several years, it might tell a completely different story. Say that 15.3 times was only 10 times 2 years ago and 12 times last year. Well, now we see a clear upward trajectory. It represents a massive sustained improvement from prior years, maybe due to better collection practices or stricter credit assessments. The math, the number itself, didn't change at all, but by comparing it to the firm's past performance, our interpretation just completely transformed from lagging the industry to rapidly improving operations.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Common Candidate Mistakes. Let's talk about the pitfalls you aggressively need to avoid. If you take nothing else away from this explainer, I want to stamp this golden rule from the text right into your memory. Ratios are not useful unless they can be compared against a standard or benchmark. Understanding the mechanics of the formulas is honestly only half the battle. Knowing the limitations of the data is what actually separates a novice from an expert. Interpreting a single ratio without a benchmark is fundamentally useless. Never, ever accept a standalone number as an answer. Always, always ask, compared to what? Furthermore, don't forget that just blindly comparing numbers across different companies or even across different years for the exact same company is super dangerous. You absolutely must account for distortions to comparability. Our source material highlights several major pitfalls you've got to watch out for. First, differing accounting policies. Like, if one company uses LIFO for inventory and another uses FIFO, your comparison is already distorted straight out of the gate. What about inflation? It can dramatically decrease the value of outstanding long-term debt and completely distort asset values recorded at historical costs. Next up, seasonal factors. If a business is highly seasonal, looking at a simple average of beginning and year-end inventory balances might completely hide massive fluctuations that happen mid-year. You really need monthly averages for that. Finally, geographical differences. You just can't perfectly compare two firms if they operate in entirely different labor markets or if they face totally different governmental regulations and tax structures. It's literally comparing apples to oranges. So as we wrap up this explainer, remember that ratio analysis is a comparative tool. It is not and never will be a standalone answer. Think of it like a mirror. But a mirror is really only as good as the light in the room, right? So the very next time you calculate a metric or review a financial statement, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what is the benchmark that's giving this number its meaning? Because without that benchmark, you're just staring at a lonely number. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep demanding the context.